All right, so let's get right into it. Some serious political intrigue. If you've been following the news at all, you know that Trump is back in the White House. And his second-term cabinet picks are causing a bit of a stir, to say the least.
Yeah, you could say that again. It's definitely not business as usual. Even those who've been watching politics for years are surprised by some of these choices.
Yeah, it's really not just about who he picked, but it's all the baggage they bring with them.
Hmm.
Almost feels like we're watching an episode of House of Cards. you know? Like every move is calculated and every handshake could be a betrayal waiting to happen.
Uh-huh. That might be a little dramatic, but there's no denying there's a ton of strategy involved here. Remember, Trump is working with a very, very slim Republican majority in the House right now. So these appointments, they're not just about filling empty seats. This is a big political chess game, and he's setting up his pieces.
Right. Okay. So let's get into the specifics about some of these picks. First up, we've got Pete Hegseth. He's leading the Department of Defense now. Ex-Fox News guy, Army veteran. Sounds good so far, right?
Well, on the surface, maybe. But there's more to the story. He's got these allegations of sexual assault in his past, some iffy financial dealings, and a bit of a reputation for enjoying a drink or two, maybe more than he should.
And even with all that, he still got confirmed. Although it was close, the Vice President J.D. Vance had to step in and break the tie in the Senate.
Mm.
Really shows you how much disagreement there is around this pick.
Oh, absolutely. It really highlights how fragile the Republican majority is right now and how every single vote is going to be a fight for this administration. They make one wrong move and the whole thing could fall apart.
Okay, and then there's Tulsi Gabbard. She's the new director of national intelligence, former Democrat, now Republican, the one who met with Assad back in 2017, and has said some things that seem pretty pro-Russia.
Yeah, that appointment, it's a head scratcher for sure.
Hmm.
Especially with Assad's regime collapsing recently. It makes you wonder about her judgment and, where her loyalties really lie.
It's definitely a bold move, to say the least, and a lot of intelligence experts are confused.
For sure. And let's not forget the absolute firestorm that erupted when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was made the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Now, that's where things get really interesting. I mean, this is an environmental lawyer who's also very, very publicly anti-vaccine and believes in all sorts of conspiracy theories about fluoride.
Yeah, his confirmation was a total mess. It's a choice that sparked a lot of really heated public debate and some serious worries about the future of public health policy in this country.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've got Pam Bondi as the new Attorney General. And of course, she's got her own share of controversy swirling around her. People haven't forgotten about that donation she got from Trump's foundation right when she was supposed to be investigating Trump University.
Right, right. Her appointment raises a lot of questions about ethics and whether being loyal to Trump is more important than experience or qualifications in this administration. We're seeing that pattern emerge with a few of these picks, and it's troubling, to say the least.
Feels like each one of these picks is guaranteed to make headlines. It's like Trump went out of his way to find the most polarizing figures he could and said, all right, let the games begin.
He's definitely playing a dangerous game here. And this isn't just about putting on a show for the cameras. These are people who are going to have real power and make decisions that will affect people's lives.
Yeah, and that's exactly why these picks have caused such a huge reaction from the public. People are worried about what's going to happen because of these choices. It makes sense.
Yeah, let's dig into that a little more. What are the actual risks here? What should people be concerned about?
Well, with Hegseth running the Defense Department, there's a real chance we could see some impulsive decisions,
Right.
and maybe a shift towards a more aggressive military approach to foreign policy. He's so close to Trump, and he's made some pretty provocative statements in the past, so it's easy to see how that could cause some instability on the global stage and maybe even damage our relationships with allies.
And what about Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence? That's got to be raising some eyebrows too, right? Oh, absolutely. Her history with some, shall we say, controversial figures, especially with everything going on in Syria, really makes you wonder if she can be objective when it comes to intelligence and protecting national security. I think it's a legitimate fear that she might let her personal biases influence her judgment, and that could put our whole intelligence system at risk.
Yeah, and then there's Kennedy Jr. over at Health and Human Services. That's got to be the most unsettling of all.
Yeah, a lot of scientists and doctors are freaking out about that one. His whole anti-vaccine stance, based on debunked theories and misinformation, could really hurt public health, especially now with everything that's happened with the pandemic. We could see diseases that were almost eradicated come back, and people might start losing trust in our public health institutions.
And Bondi is Attorney General.
Uh-huh.
That just seems like it's going to lead to even more ethical problems.
Yeah, it has a lot of people worried that the Justice Department is going to become totally politicized. Like, loyalty to Trump will be more important than actually pursuing justice fairly. It brings up the idea of cronyism and maybe even obstruction of justice and weakening the rule of law itself. It's a scary thought.
It's a pretty bleak picture, to be honest. Feels like every one of these appointments is another crack in the foundation of our democracy.
Yeah, that's a powerful image. And it really highlights how important this all is. This isn't just some abstract political game. These decisions have real-world consequences for regular people and for the future of the country.
So what can we do about it? As citizens, I mean, is there anything we can do to stop this potential slide towards authoritarianism?
Well, first of all, we can't just give up and get apathetic. We can't just sit back and watch this happen. We have to stay
So, but
involved.
no doom scrolling then. What's the alternative?
The alternative is staying informed and engaged. We have to keep a close eye on things, be critical of the information we're getting, and hold our elected official accountable. We can't let misinformation and propaganda spread unchecked. We have to demand transparency, integrity, and a commitment to doing what's best for the public from the people in power.
So fact-checking, staying involved in our communities, making our voices heard. But does that really matter in such a divided political climate?
It has to matter. The only other option is to become cynical and just watch as our democracy falls apart. We can support organizations that are working to protect voting rights, fighting against misinformation, and making sure the government is ethical. We can talk to each other, even with people we disagree with, and try to find common ground.
It's a tough challenge, though. It feels like we're in uncharted territory.
Yeah, no doubt these are unprecedented times,
And-
but we can look back at history and see that democracies have faced tough times before and come out stronger. We need courage, resilience, and faith in the power of working together.
But is that really enough? I mean, remember the House of Cards thing we keep coming back to. Frank Underwood, the main character, he got to the top by manipulating everyone and everything, leaving a trail of destruction behind him. Is that what we're facing here? Like a slow and calculated destruction of democracy.
The similarities are definitely a little unsettling, I'll admit that. But House of Cards was just a TV show. It showed the bad side of power, but it wasn't necessarily a completely accurate picture of how politics works. There are tons of people in government and outside of it who are dedicated to upholding democratic values and working towards a more just and fair society.
So there's still some hope then. A little light in all the darkness.
It might be a small flicker of hope, but it's worth holding on to. We can't lose sight of the ideas that our democracy is founded on freedom of speech, the rule of law, respect for human dignity. Those are the things we have to keep fighting for.
It sounds like you're saying we need to take action. It's not just up to the people in charge. The future of our democracy is in the hands of every citizen.
That's exactly right. The story isn't finished yet, the next chapter hasn't been written, and we, the people, have a part to play in how it all turns out.
Okay, so with all this talk about political maneuvering and potential disasters, there's one big question we haven't really answered yet. What is Trump's goal here? What's the big plan behind these picks that seem so reckless?
That's the mystery everyone's trying to figure out. Is this just chaos? Is it some kind of strategy of disruption? Or is it something else entirely?
It's like watching a chess grandmaster making moves that don't make sense at first.
Yeah.
But, there's some deeper plan. You just can't see it yet.
And the stakes couldn't be higher. If we misread what he's doing, we could be caught completely off guard and have no way to counter him.
So let's try to break down the reasons behind these appointments. First, there's the obvious loyalty factor. Trump has always valued loyalty above everything else, and these picks definitely reflect that.
Absolutely. Each one of these people has shown they're loyal to Trump no matter what, even when there's clear evidence that he might be wrong.
Now, Hegseth was like Trump's biggest cheerleader back when he was on Fox News, repeating everything Trump said and calling anyone who disagreed fake news.
And Gabbard, even though she used to criticize Trump, she ended up siding with him. It seems like she decided that getting ahead in politics was more important than sticking to her principles.
And Kennedy Jr., even though he wasn't really involved in politics before, the things he's been saying are pretty similar to Trump's populist anti-establishment message.
And Bondi's actions, especially when she dropped the investigation into Trump University, it makes it seem like she's willing to protect Trump's interests, even if it means breaking the law.
So loyalty is definitely a big part of it. But is that the whole story? It feels like there's something more going on, something more strategic.
You're right. There's also this whole element of disruption. Trump loves to shake things up, challenge the way things are done, and turn the power structure upside down. And these appointments fit that pattern perfectly.
He seems to really thrive on all the chaos and controversy. Like he enjoys keeping everyone on edge and off balance.
Yeah, it's like a tactic to create confusion, undermine trust in our institutions, and ultimately grab more power for himself. If he can keep everything in a state of upheaval, then he can make himself look like the only one who can fix it.
It's a risky strategy, though.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, is he some kind of master strategist who has a specific goal in mind with all this? Or is he just impulsive and reckless, driven by his ego and a need for power?
That's the big question, isn't it? And the answer could determine what happens to this country.
So we have loyalty and disruption, and then there's the possibility that he's doing all this on purpose to weaken democracy and gain more power for himself. That's pretty scary.
It's definitely a chilling thought, and we can't ignore it.
It's like he's playing poker with the future of our country, and the stakes are incredibly high.
And we're all watching, holding our breath, hoping he doesn't lose everything on a bad hand.
Yeah, it really does feel like a gamble. And it makes you wonder, is he some kind of genius strategist, or is this whole thing going to fall apart?
I think that's what makes this so interesting. And it brings us back to that House of Cards comparison again. That show wasn't just about ruthless politics. It was about how trust erodes and how people abuse power and the damage that unchecked ambition can do to people.
And we're seeing those same things play out in real life with these cabinet picks. The drama, the ethical questions, the way they're ignoring the rules, it's all very unsettling.
Yeah, it definitely reminds us that power can be dangerous when it's not used responsibly. And it shows just how fragile democracy is. It depends on a balance of power and everyone agreeing to work for the common good.
So what happens now? What should we be looking out for as this all plays out?
Well, the first thing is to watch how these cabinet members actually do their jobs. Are they going to put the American people first, or are they just going to be loyal to Trump no matter what?
And what about Congress? Are they going to push back against the president, or are they going to let him grab more power?
That's a huge question right now. The Republicans have such a small majority in the House, so every single vote is going to be a battle. It's going to show whether they're really committed to democracy or not.
And maybe the most important question is, how are the American people going to react? Are they going to just accept this, or are they going to demand more from their leaders?
That's the big unknown right now. Public opinion is what's going to decide whether these appointments are just a temporary thing or if they're a sign of a more authoritarian future.
So we need to take action then. We can't just sit back and do nothing.
That's right. We have to stay informed, have conversations that challenge us and hold our leaders accountable. We need to support organizations that are protecting our democratic values and institutions, and we need to make our voices heard, make sure they know what we think.
This isn't just about politics. It's about the future of our country. The decisions we make now are going to affect generations to come.
And it's a fight we can't afford to lose. The stakes are too high.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Trump's cabinet, I want to leave our listeners with this thought: the future of our democracy isn't set in stone. It's a story that's still being written, and we all have a part in how it ends.
We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we can choose to be involved, to fight for what we believe in, and to never give up hope for a better future.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a crazy ride, and who knows what's coming next. But one thing's for sure, we'll be here to break it all down for you every step of the way.
Until next time, stay engaged, stay informed, and keep questioning everything.